and gentlemen, welcome back. This video tutorial is for people who are in Geometry Goal 1. We're starting to hit the end of the chapter. Only 2 more families left. Transformations is going to be our next big thing, and then we'll round off with reflections. Before I actually move into the actual topics, to make sure transformations is sort of a generic catch-all phrase, because there's 4 technically specific transformations that we talk about in geometry. There is translation, there is rotation, there is reflection, fancy that given the title of the next family, and then technically there's one called dilation. We're going to save dilation. That one is a later chapter, so we're going to talk about that in a different video. But to translate means to slide, to rotate means to turn, and to reflect means to flip. So to translate, let's assume I have a basic triangle. I'm going to shift it to the right, and then there's my exact same triangle. That's what it means to rotate. For rotation, to translate, to rotate, let's say I have a triangle, and then I'm going to rotate it around a point so that it looks like this. That's a rotation. And then a reflection, if I have my little triangle, I have a line of reflection, which I flip over it. So that's what the 4 key, that's what the 3 major transformations that we'll be talking about here. They'll be all done in various types, and reflections will be done in more detail in the next video. So, scrolling down. Now that we know what the basics are, if we look at this, we can kind of invisibly see our line of reflection. So that's going to be a reflection. Here, we just moved it over. That means it's going to be translation. We just moved it over. That's a translation. We turned it, which means that this is a rotation, and it's just getting you used to that. Here, where you see we go from smaller to bigger, that's technically a dilation. That's when we're shifting the size. So that's none of the 3 that are listed. Here we are rotating. Here you can see your line of reflection, and then over here you can see that we're moving it, which means that this is just a translation. So those are the bare bones basics. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let's see here. This topic here, I can't really give you a walkthrough for it because, again, it's one of those manipulative topics where you're going to be taking this triangle and you're going to be moving it around and squiggling it around in order to fit into the particular shape. And then once that's done, you're set. And if not, then you're going to be writing not possible. So there's not really anything I can really demonstrate for it. Over here, finding a point. Points that partitions. Okay, so now since we're talking about, it's not quite a transformation, but this was close as we could get. Here is our key point here. JK to KL is going to be 5 to 1. So 5 to 1, which means that this is visually a lot smaller than this. So if we know the total distance, let's see here. When you're looking at this, the thing that they don't always tell you, and we'll find out as I go through this because I don't remember this topic as well, you need the total distance. So you have 2 parts, but you also, because since it says you have a ratio, you're always going to have a part to a whole and then a part to a whole. That's what we got to keep in mind. So if we have, what's our total distance here? We have 27 to negative 9. So 27 minus negative 27 minus negative 9. So that's double negative. That's going to be a distance of 18. Okay. So now that we have our 18, we know that this is going to be our whole. The question then is, what is our part? And that's the part where a lot of kids get a little bit stuck. Here's our part right here. We have 5 parts over here and 1 part over here. So how many parts are there in total? 6. So what this means then is this is a 1/3. All of your distance here is going to be 1/3. Let's erase some of my extra work because we don't need it. Let's see here. So now that we know of our various pieces of our one, if it's a 1/3, if it's basically, it's a 5-to-1 ratio, but because of the distance, that means it's 1/3. So what is 1/3 of the way from 9 to 27? This is the important part of the fraction, is the 1/3. Now, so far, they always tell you that it's a 1-to-2 ratio. Ooh, this is getting messy over here. Let me clear this up a little bit. Here's the thing that you're pointing out. So let's recap what we did, because it was a little bit messy as I was stumbling my way through. We need our part to whole. So that means we need our distance, which was 27, negative 27 minus negative 9, and then we just made it positive. And then our part is our, what do I call it? We'll say our total ratio. Total ratio, which in this case was 5 plus 1. That's what we ended up getting, the 6/18, which gets to 1/3. Now, since this is a 1-to-5 ratio, what that means then is it is 3 units over. So if I go over 1, 2, 3 units, where do I stop? Negative 12, and that's going to be our answer. So let's do it a little bit more cleanly here. We have our total distance from 14 to 38, so that's 38 minus 14 is 24. And then we have a ratio of 1 to 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. That simplifies to 1/8. There's the number I want. Let's see here. So I'm going to be going, it's YZ, which is the 1. So if I'm going 8, what's happening now is I'm taking the 8 and I'm applying it here. So I'm going to go over, however many 8 spaces is. Where do I stop? I stop at 30. Okay, that was a little meandering, but that's basically how you're doing this topic in a nutshell. This one isn't as important. It's not on the DSA. If this confused you and you want to skip this topic, I do respect that. Next up, now we're getting used to some of the major stuff. Translating. Translating, as we recall, means to slide. All right, so now that we know that we're sliding, it even tells you 6 units to the left. So I'm taking this dot and moving it over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there is my new shape. Okay? Okay. What's the point of the original figure? Here's the original, so it's 7, negative 3. And what's the point on the final figure? Over here, it's 1, negative 3. So that's all you're really doing for this topic. So we're taking this and we're translating it up 7 units. The original point is negative 5, negative 4. And then once we stop, let's see here, it will be 1 space and then something like that. Let's see here. If we're going up, so it's still at negative 5, and if we went up 7, we stop at 3. So this topic, pretty straightforward. Then let's tick it up again, because you start with the basics, and then you start adding a little bit more. So now here we're doing 2 things. We are translating the figure 7 units to the right, and then we're going 4 units up. And then that's going to be the new shape of our figure. Okay, so the original figure is what? It is negative 6, negative 4. So then what's our new point? It's going to be 1, 0. All right, same thing over here. We're going to take this and we are going to go to the left 5 units, and then we're going to go down 8 units, There we go, and there's our new shape. And it's over 3, and then it's 2, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's our shape. All right, so what's the point of the original figure? It is at 8, 4. And now what's the point of the final figure? It is 3, negative 4. So we're just getting you used to how the translating is. Now let's take it even a step further. Now we're translating the whole darn thing, which is, if you notice, what I've been doing with these shapes as I've been getting them, just to make sure that I knew what I was doing. Here you're clicking and dragging. Here you're physically making it. So we're taking 2 left, 3 down. So we're going to go over 2, down 3. Over 2, down 3. Over 2, down 3. And there's my shape. And that's all they're expecting you to do. And over here, we're going to go over to... My screen grab curse strikes again. For those of you who've been watching my videos, I keep getting the same problem as a screen grab at random intervals. Go figure. At least this one was easy. Now let's take away the coordinate plane as a whole and let's do our translation. So first things first, you can kind of see here visually this is a little bit messy. We're going to read this as point A, and then this we're going to read it as A apostrophe, which means we read it as A prime. So those apostrophes mean, or at least we use the word prime when we see it. So there's my first point, A, and there's my A prime. So you can already see that we changed. We went, let's see here, from 4 to 1 and then -3 to -1. What else does it say? Under the same translation, the points B and C are translated to B prime and C prime respectively, and now you got to figure out what that is. So if we went from A 4 -3 to A prime 1 -1, what did we do? What was our jump from 4 to 3? We went left, or in other words, backwards, 3 spaces. And then from 3 to -1, we went up, because these are the y coordinates, 2 spaces. So if I have B, and it's 1 -5, I now actually have to do the thing in order to get my B prime. So if I go left 3, that will put me at -2, and then if I go up 2, that will put me at -3. If my original point for C is 6, -1, my C prime is going to be, if I'm going left 3, 3, 1, and that's how you're doing it. So over here, what did we have? We went, A is 0, 3, and then we went to A prime, which is 5, -2. Okay, so from here to here, I went right 5. And then from here to here, what did I do? I went down 5. So now I know. A, yeah, sure, A. B prime is what I meant to say. Okay, so B is what? -4, 7. And now we're going to go to B prime. So if I go right 4, I stop at 1. And then if I go down 5, I stop at 2. And now for C, what's my original? It is going to be -2, 1. And now my C prime, I'm going to go down, go right 5. Right 5, Ms. Dubois, so that's going to put me at 3. And then I'm going to go down 5, which is -4. And there are my points. And this is what you would be inputting into the software. So not so bad. And then look at this. We have proper notation. And oh, look, we hit the end. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need for the basics of transformations. Reflections is a big enough thing that it's going to be its own family, and that will be the last video for Geometry Goal 1, Chapter 1. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.